Hey Guru Nation, welcome back to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. My name is Dan Sfera. This is episode 70. Thank you to everyone who's been with me since episode 1 of the podcast. And then, of course, this is also going up on YouTube. I don't put all the podcasts on YouTube, so if you're on YouTube, go subscribe, iTunes, Google Play, whatever you want, because there is some exclusive content there as well. Actually, most of it's exclusive, but this one's going up on both because I think it's very important. And I had 3 teleconferences today with potential clients. We've been getting a lot of these lately. And this one is, actually both of them were CRAs that want to start their own site. There's a lot of them out there, all right? And by the way, I don't blame you, okay? Now, being a business owner is not for everyone. So you have to have a certain amount of tolerance for risk and for the unknown, because it's not like going into work and getting a paycheck every 2 weeks and being given work. When you're an entrepreneur, you need to go out and hunt for the work and then do the work. So that's a huge difference. I mean, no, and there's no blueprint for how to do it. Like, yes, you can like try to emulate myself. I did my own thing. I went my own route. But there's people who are doing this. You can kind of use best practices from other people in the industry. But at the end of the day, you are unique, and you are going to do things the way you're going to do them. Within a certain framework, hopefully, and following some fundamental principles. But this, again, I just want to put it out there. A little asterisk by this video and podcast episode. If you're a CRA, I'm not encouraging you to quit your job and start a site. Okay, so please don't do that. What I am doing is letting you know that it is an option, and you don't need to quit your job. And it's an opportunity that's available, and I think owning a site is infinitely easier than being a CRA, and I think it's also infinitely more rewarding, but at the end of the day, you gotta do what makes you happy. Okay, if you're happy in your current position, you don't need to do anything. Stop watching, stop listening, go do something else. You're happy. But if you want something else, if you want more, if you're tired, if you're not happy, there are other options, and one of them might be owning a site, all right? So, today I talked to a CRA, actually 2 of them, like I said. The differences between them. One, they were both senior CRAs. One was very practical and methodical in her approach, and the other was not. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing. That's probably why she wanted to have a teleconference with me in the first place. But the other one was further along ahead. Like, she actually thought this through. Look, if you're going to open a site, I don't care if you're a CRA, study coordinator, a doctor, if you're going to open a site, you're not going to make money in your first year. You're just not. I mean, you might start making some money after month 6 if you're lucky. And certainly you can start keeping some of that money if your expenses are low, meaning you are the coordinator. But if that's not the case, don't expect to see income in your pocket, and don't expect this to be a replacement for your job anytime soon. And so again, CRA is a very lucrative career. It's rewarding in its own right. Okay, there's a lot of aspects about being a CRA that I enjoy, and I'm not a full-time CRA by any stretch of the imagination. I am very part-time, but there are some elements of it that I enjoy, and I'm an entrepreneur. It's hard for me to like anything that doesn't involve working on my own businesses. And maybe one of the reasons why I enjoy my CRA gig on the side is because it's helping me build my CRO. So I'm looking at being a CRA as a stepping stone towards building my CRO up. So I think the more I get introspective about it, that's why I enjoy my CRA side gig. But and I've never had to travel. I've never been on an airplane for a CRA project. My sites are local to me. I just drive there, and in 15 minutes I'm there. So I could imagine how this could get stressful. I've never been through a database lock yet. I don't want to. I'm not looking forward to that, but I know that I need to go through it because with our CRO projects, we're going to have database locks. And as much as we don't like dealing with it, if you're trying to build something, you're going to have to go through it yourself and actually get your hands dirty and see what it's all about. So, again, very important. I'm not telling you to quit your job and go start a site. All right? But I am telling you that it is an option, and there are several sub-options. So, you can open a site as a CRA and never quit your job. You can just hire a full-time study coordinator, hire a biz dev person, hello, that will be me, hire someone to negotiate your contracts and budgets, also me, okay? It's only $1,000 a month is what you'll pay me for all that stuff. So you can continue being a CRA, make your money, do what you gotta do, have this as a little side project. If it materializes into something that is now rivaling your income, now you have a decision to make. Do you quit and go all in? Can you double that now? Or do you just hire more employees and make it bigger and continue doing what you do? Or quit your job and just kick back and let the people running your clinic run the whole show. Although, as an owner, I don't believe that ever truly happens until you build a sophisticated organization where people report, and ultimately there's a CEO, and then they report to you. So you could be hands-off, and I've never gotten to that point. I probably will when I'm older, like in my 70s and ready to retire. But maybe sooner, I don't know. It depends what kind of opportunities I come across. But clinical research, it's a great industry to be in, right? CRAs are high paid, research sites get good budgets. If you know what you're doing, you can make 6 figures in your first year, right? And then if you stick around every 3 or 4 years, the big budget studies come along, like the really big budget studies come along, like the Black Swans. They'll come along once every 3 or 4 years where it'll be like a 7-figure budget study instead of your traditional 6-figure budget studies, which, by the way, are still good, okay? So, don't quit your job if you're a CRA, but do listen to this if you're considering opening a site on the side. Have a plan, okay? One of the topics that came up in the conversations today was, would I ever go back to being a CRA? Did I ever feel the need to do that? And the answer is no. Right now I'm actually a CRA because I need to learn the process. I need to learn some of the nuts and bolts of what it takes to actually build a CRO and at least get the monitoring aspect down. But the way I look at having experience as a CRA, or maybe it's a study coordinator for you, or I don't know what it is, regulatory affairs, you have an insurance policy in place. The same reason why I pay $150 every month for my auto insurance, which actually is a pretty good price. The same reason why I have health insurance, the same reason why I have insurance for my house is that's a backup plan. That's going to protect me against a disaster. And in this sense, when you open a research clinic, your experience as a CRA is never going to go away. It's not going to just disappear, right? This is not the book. I'm actually reading a book, 1984. I recommend everyone read it. They actually vaporize people, and they vaporize history when they don't want people to remember something. That's not the way it works. If you're a CRA and you open a site, your history as a CRA is not vaporized. Like, it's there. Okay, it's on your CV. You have experience. It's there. If your site goes out of business, you can go get a job. Within 3 to 6 months, you can get another job. Easy. Okay? So that's your backup plan. never burn a bridge. Never, that person who said when they invaded a country and they burned all their ships, so they had no plan B, no option two, that's just stupid. Okay, if you can have backup plans, you need it, because you need to be practical, especially if you have other people depending on you, like family, kids. I don't have kids, but I definitely take care of some people in my family, and that would be foolish of me to not have a backup plan. So that's another reason why it was important for me to get some experience as a CRA, just to have that on my resume. You never know, should something happen to the clinics. I mean, I'm not expecting anything to happen. I actually see right now we're starting to see a lot more studies, a lot more activity. The CRO's picking up, the consulting's doing great, the CRA Academy's doing fine. I don't foresee any disasters, but you never know. And then it's nice to know that you have that. So it's like an insurance policy. So that is, never burn your bridges, right? If you're gonna open a site, don't just quit your job with no notice whatsoever, because you never know if you need to go back, right? Why not? And especially if you're an independent contractor, you can do this easily. But if you're a full-time employee, you can probably work fewer hours, maybe switch to part-time, maybe take on one less study, or a couple fewer sites and open a site of your own. Or you can do like some of my current clients and just hire a full-time employee. So let's say you're making, after taxes, you're bringing in $8,000 a month. If you're a salaried CRA in most of the country, the average after taxes, if you're a W-2 employee, is around $8,000, maybe $9,000 in your pocket. Okay. Now, instead of using that all up, well, dedicate maybe $2,000 of that to your side project. Okay. Hire a coordinator. Hire someone who knows what they're doing, and you won't need to hire them on a full-time basis initially either. Have them run the clinic. Hire me to get you studies. Go on clinicaltrials.gov yourself. Go email 100 people a week on there, and within 3 months you'll have a study. Guaranteed. Guaranteed, alright? Unless your pitch is awful, and I even think in those cases you'll still get a study. May not be a study you like, but you'll get a study if you follow this model. So there's always pros and cons to everything, but backup plans are not a bad thing, okay? And a lot of my clients are CRAs, and they haven't quit their jobs, and some of my clients are CRAs that have finally quit their jobs, and both end up being pretty good with managing their clinics. Now, some people fail, and this is again why you shouldn't quit your job. Some people fail, and if you're gonna fail, you're gonna fail in your first 12 months. So in your first 12 months, you should not, I don't care how confident you are, do not quit your job. I don't care if you're a study coordinator. I've actually, one of my current clients, is an experienced study coordinator who started her own site on the side, and she was maintaining her coordinator job for the first 6 months of having her new site up and running. So here's what will happen in your first 6 months of having your own clinic. The first 3 months are spent getting your study, getting the site selection visit, if you're lucky, getting the SIV done within that time period, getting the contract and budget done, getting the startup regulatory done. You haven't made anything. You've just spent a lot of time and energy, maybe even money, and you haven't made very much unless you've already gotten your startup fee, which is anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000. So that's the first 3 months. Now, in the next 3 months, you can start screening patients. Okay, so now it's 6 months go by, and probably around this time you'll get your first paycheck from study activity, because it takes about 3 months, especially when it's a brand new study, for the monitor to come SDV your initial couple of visits, and then that goes back to project manager. Every sponsor, every CRO has a different trigger for when payments get sent out to sites. So within 6 months of starting, the first 3 months were spent getting your first study and getting it set up. Your next 3 months were spent enrolling, randomizing, having monitors come over, answering queries, and then now you're getting paid, okay? Now you have a decision to make within 6 months, and I still wouldn't quit until 12 months. So do what you got to do. I don't care if you got to take a day off every week of work. Just figure out a way to get both done for that first year. I know it could be tough, and guess what? That's like the price of entry. That's the cost of entry for being an entrepreneur and for trying to actually do something, if that's something you want to do, if you have ambitions to own your own company and be your own boss. So after the first 6 months, if you think things are going well, I would be okay if you decide to quit your job. You'll know there will come a point where it will be impossible physically and logistically to do both. Come that point in time, you have another decision. That's another inflection point. You either need to quit your job and go full-time on this project, or you need to remain in your job and hire someone to do it. And you can negotiate their salary. Say, hey, for these first 6 months, we're still figuring out how this goes. I'm going to pay you less, but I'm going to give you, at the end of these 6 months, a percentage of each study budget, like 4%, 5%, 3%, whatever it may be. Give that person something, because they're taking a chance on you. They're getting paid under market value for this initial period of time. You need to give them something, some kind of incentive on the back end. Now, after that 12 months, you then have another inflection point. Do you quit your job and because you're getting a lot more studies and it's not enough for your part-time coordinator to handle? Or do you now pay your part-time coordinator a full-time coordinator salary and remain in your job and have them continue to work? It's just they're working full-time now. It's another decision you make, but do you see the common theme here? You always have options, all right? Let's say you lose, and this happens a lot. It's going to happen a lot more going forward. Sponsors canceling their studies because they're not liking the results happens a lot. It's going to happen a lot more with remote monitoring, risk-based monitoring, data analysis, big data, artificial intelligence, looking at all these algorithms and figuring out how the study's progressing. They're able to do many more studies now, and they will be going forward, but fail faster. And so chances are your study that you got that you're all excited about, it may be canceled. And then what are you going to do? What are you going to do if you quit your job because you had one study that you got excited about, and then as soon as you quit your job, that study, the sponsor canceled that study, and now you have no job, no study. What the heck are you going to do? Right? So don't do that. Always have 3, 4, 5 studies. Maximize everything you can out of your employee and out of your time. You're not going to have time. If you're trying to do both, you're not going to have time for anything else. Okay? Weekends are gone. You need to focus on your business. During the week, you got to do what you got to do to pay your bills, make ends meet, and run your business. But you need options. Once you get, hopefully within your first year, you have 3 studies. Maybe by month 13, month 14, month 15, you can get 2 or 3 more studies. Now, you have more confidence, and you have more information, and you have more stability. You have more of a good idea and a solid foundation and a better understanding of what you can expect for the next year. And now, it's a little bit less risky to quit your job. It's just time. Can you do this? And by the way, you may find out that you don't even like running a research clinic. I mean, maybe it's too stressful for you. There was times where it was extremely stressful for me. Like my first 5 years, I went through, and remember, I started in 2005, and so I just got started, like this whole process I explained of your first year and then your second year. By the time I got into my 3rd year, which was 2007, 2008, I was getting comfortable. I was starting to get a feel for the lay of the land. You know what happened? The Great Recession of 2007, 2008. And studies were dropping. Sponsors were canceling studies every day. I had 9 studies at one clinic with 4 employees. Sponsors were closing studies, people were freaking out, and I, foolishly, very foolishly and naively, invested, instead of scaling back and probably laying off some staff members, even though that would have been a tough thing to do. It was the necessary thing to do. I didn't do that. Instead, I opened up another clinic, which I still have to this day, so I'm actually happy I did that. And then a year later, I opened a third clinic, which is still around. And by the way, all 3 of these clinics are still around. I still own one of them. There have been some new partners come in, and we sold some shares. But I was working against the market. I was foolishly not paying attention to what the market was showing me. Like, hey, we're in the middle of a financial crisis here. And those were some stressful times. I mean, credit card limits were maxed out. Sponsors were canceling studies. I had payroll to meet every 2 weeks. I was expanding. I was personally on the hook for 3 leases for 3 separate sites. But we managed to pull through it. None of those sites closed. All those people kept their jobs. I think I had to cut back one person's hours, and then they ended up leaving, but I kept everybody, okay? In hindsight, I probably would have let go of like half of the staff and maybe expanded instead of like that next year. I probably should have waited 2 or 3 more years for the market. And again, I was not expecting this to be a great recession, but it lasted from 2008 until probably 2011 when the market started picking up again. And I actually invested in another site in 2009 and one more in 2010. So it was a stressful period of time for me. And at that time I had no backup plan. I mean, I could have probably gone to get hired as a study coordinator, but again, we were in the middle of the Great Recession. Who was going to hire me? If I were a CRA or if I had some CRA experience, I probably could have picked up a few gigs here and there. Even during the Great Recession, I know some CRAs were getting cut from projects, but they were usually, most of them were able to rebound back into the industry within a couple of months. But studies were, I mean, it was tough times. It was ugly. And who's to say that's not going to happen again? And who's to say that you could get a job as a CRA if we're in the middle of another Great Recession? I mean, the more backup plans you have, the more options you have, the better it is for you. Multiple streams of income, multiple pathways you can take. What if CRAs are no longer needed, and artificial intelligence takes over? I mean, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it's a possibility. And so maybe it's good that you started a site, right? So playing both sides of the fence is a good strategy. And I do think there will come a time, and an inflection point is what I would call it, when you need to fully dedicate to one and maximize. Hopefully you can time the market right and maximize profits during that time period. But having multiple options is always a good thing. So the opportunities are there, okay? If you're a CRA, if you're a study coordinator, if you're a doctor and you want to open a site, do it. But it's not binary. It's not all or nothing. Okay, you can do both, and you can do both for a relatively long period of time. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, indefinitely. One of my clients, senior CRA, she's owned her site for 4 years and still full-time CRA. So options, have options. Right? Now guess what? If she's ever replaced by an algorithm, she has a clinic, because the clinic is not likely to be replaced by an algorithm, at least not yet. When that happens, we're all in trouble no matter what industry we're in. But have options and be available to capitalize on opportunities in both areas. Okay? So as I was telling this potential client, studies come in waves, like the big budget studies come in waves. And on average, a typical study will generate about 6 figures of gross revenue a year for you. Now, every 3, 4, or 5 years, a 7-figure budget study comes along, and basically your goal, and they will come in waves. So maybe you'll get one, and then 2 months later you'll get another one. If that's the situation, you definitely need to quit your job at that point and focus on those. Once you make sure you have them, okay, secure them first. But the strategy at that point is to survive the downturns in the market and capitalize, strike while the iron's hot during those really good periods. And they come in waves, right? In real estate, it's 7 years. 7-year boom, 7-year bust. 7-year boom, 7-year bust. Clinical research, every 3 to 4 years, you can get a 7-figure budget study. And then you don't even need another study if you get one of those, if you only have a few staff. Or you can have one of those and you take over that project, and then you have your staff for the other studies, or vice versa. Whatever you want to do. But you want to always have backup plans, options. There's nothing wrong with your site not working out, and now you could go back to being a CRA, or your site's doing great, and you need to quit your job, but then you still have that experience on your resume, or maybe don't quit, maybe just get switched to an independent contractor, and instead of having 5 studies or 3 studies you were working on as a CRA, maybe just have 1, and then spend more time in your clinic. So always have options. Be ready to capitalize on the opportunities that come in the industry, and don't quit your job foolishly, and don't expand foolishly like I did in a downturn when the market's clearly telling you that that's not the right time to do it. So a lot of do's, a lot of don'ts. Do have backup plans. Do give yourself options. Don't burn bridges. That's all I have to say. So thank you very much for watching and listening, and let me know if you have any questions about anything. I'd love to hear from all of you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.